Let's start on our backs today. Something comfy here. See if I can get this camera to focus. I know it wants to. There we go. All right. So, just a nice place on your back where you can be at ease, where you can breathe fluidly, where you can relax in to the physicality of your body. Let's just really settle into the fluidity of our breath. Just feeling into that inhale and exhale. Visualizing your lungs as you hold that breath in. And visualizing your lungs as you exhale as well. Really nice and fluid in our breath. Let's give ourselves just about 60 more seconds here. Just feeling our way into our breath. Last 15 seconds here. And eventually we'll bring our knees into a bent position so that the kneecaps can point towards the ceiling. Feet flat on the ground, just feel the spine, and then let's pull both thighs in towards the rib cage. We'll give ourselves a nice little compression into the hips here. Think about how much compression is appropriate for you, how hard you want to squeeze. And then let's release our feet back down to the mat. As the feet come down to the mat, push into the toe mounds and heels, and let's lift our belt line up into just a little baby bridge, like 1 or 2 inches. And then think about the anterior hip crease here. Really think about what you can do position-wise as you lower that back down, that 1 or 2 inches, towards your heels, anterior hip crease towards your heels, and really sink into that. And then let's add a little arm movement here. So we're going to lift up into a traditional bridge. As we do so, we're going to extend the arms up and overhead towards the wall behind you. And then exhale, hands come back down by your sides, tailbone comes back down to the mat. And then we'll reverse. Inhale. And we lift back up. Hands reach up towards the ceiling and then towards the wall behind you. You come into that neutral bridge alignment. And then we'll exhale back down. Tailbone coming down, hands coming back down. Settling here. Inhale, we'll lift. Hips and arms. Exhale, we'll release. Hips and arms. And now, let's realign the middle of the spine. So really think about the spinal column just being right in line with the middle of your body from your sacrum all the way to the base of the skull. And then we'll elevate the feet so that the bottoms of the feet point towards the wall in front of you. And we want to have roughly a 90-degree bend in the knee, right? So a good knee engagement there. And then we'll extend both arms towards the ceiling, palms facing towards one another. And then with an exhale, feel how the core squeezes, how you get a little more neutral in the lumbar spine. And we want to stick with that. So we're going to lock in that neutrality at the end of the exhale. And then as you take your inhale breath, you stay with that core engagement. And then we will follow with an exhale that extends our left leg and our right arm. So left hand pointed towards the ceiling, left leg pointed towards the wall in front of us, right hand towards the wall behind us, that right knee still bent. And then we'll come back to neutral. So fingers towards the ceiling, knees in that 90-degree bent position. And then we'll reverse. Exhale, right leg extends, left arm extends. That right arm stays towards the ceiling, although I cheated. And then we'll come back to neutral. Release the hands down to the mat and just give your hips a little opportunity to sway and explore here. And then let's extend our left leg and guide with our left hand our right leg across our body for this nice big twist. Little opportunity to address the lumbar spine. And then we'll come back to neutral. And we'll do the same thing to the second side. So right leg extends. With the right hand, we'll help that left knee across our body. And as you take that, we'll get that nice big twist. And then we'll come back to neutral. Kneecaps towards the ceiling. Shoulders flat against the mat. We will exhale and get that core lock in. So before we even lift the legs, we're going to develop that core lock in. So feel the neutrality in the lumbar spine. Then let's lift the feet up to that 90-degree bend. And then with inhale, let's extend both arms towards the ceiling. Exhale, we'll extend the right leg and the left arm. And inhale back to neutral. And then exhale, left leg and right arm. Inhale to neutral. Exhale, left arm, right leg. Inhale to neutral. Exhale, left leg, right arm. Inhale to neutral. One more time. Let's go left arm, right leg. Inhale to neutral. Left leg, right arm. Inhale to neutral. Release the feet down to the mat. As the feet come down on the mat, press yourself up into that little bridge. Arms can be wherever feels comfortable. They can rest on your sternum. They can be down at your side. They can even tuck underneath you for a little interlace if that feels good, but something that feels good here. And then we'll release the tailbone back down to the mat. Let both knees fall over to the left And let's press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From tabletop, establishing that neutral spine once again. Once you feel like you have the base position that you're most comfortable with or that you're most proud of, let's exhale out. We'll tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone, lift the middle of the back into a nice little cat shape. Find that big arch. Inhale, drop your belly, lift your chin, lift your tailbone. Get that big expansiveness. Exhale. We'll flip, tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone, round the middle of the back, create that big expansiveness. And then inhale, we'll drop the belly, lift the chin, lift the tailbone. Coming back into our cow shape. Let's go through this one more time. So we'll exhale out. We'll feel the middle of the back. We'll tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone, get that big rounded expansiveness. Inhale, drop the belly, lift the tailbone, lift the chin. Feel all that core work that we've already done, really kind of getting moved around. And then let's come back to neutral. From neutral, curl your toes, lift your seat, roll back into down dog. Push into those fingerprints. Feel the finger mound engagement. Drive length into your hips. And then let's walk ourselves forward. We'll find our way to a forward fold. First time we've been on our feet. Can still feel that little heat we built up in the core. Let your body relax down into this space. Feel that abdominal wall, that abdominal shelf really respond to the forward fold ask. And then let's drift our awareness to our sacrum, and we'll roll ourselves up with the awareness on the posterior chain, kind of feeling the core unwind as we come up here. So we get into our top space, into our mountain. Let's bring our arms behind us. We'll interlace the fingers here. And here the elbows can be bent, the arms can be straightened, whatever feels appropriate for you. And if the finger interlace isn't there, you can go fingertips, or you can even just go palms to the glutes, whatever feels the best and the rightest for you. Take that nice big engagement in your glutes so you get nice and stable, and then squeeze the shoulder blades back. As the shoulder blades squeeze back, lift your chin towards the ceiling. We want to feel this pull across this anterior sheath, the kind of stickiest part of our shoulder capsule. And then relax the arms, sweep the arms up and overhead, release the head to neutral, and take yourself through forward fold. And feel how now the shoulders just release into that fold, and you can get that depth. Plant your hands. Let's walk back to down dog. Getting all the way up into this back corner of the shape, feeling the hip portion of the shape. And then let's come down to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we'll flip the tops of the feet and sink our way back into child's pose. Settling and breathing here. Maybe revisualizing the lungs as they receive and give breath. And so there's this little village at the edge of the whispering forest. This forest that is magically enchanted, but not in the way you would hope, not in a way where you might walk into a meadow filled with unicorns, but instead enchanted in a way where the villagers are terrified of the forest. They are terrified of going in the forest. And when the whispering forest whispers, they are terrified because they know it means a bad thing will happen in their village. Last 15 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop. And from hands and knees, tabletop, let's curl our toes, we'll lift our seat, we'll roll our way back into down dog. And then get that depth before we walk ourselves forward into fold, finding our fold of the moment, inhaling into half lift, exhaling back into fold, and sweeping ourselves up into mountain. Settling into our mountain. And from our mountain, let's really establish that strength of the shape. So really think about being rooted and grounded here. The engagement of the glutes kind of working both upstream and downstream to create stability. And then let's slide our left foot straight back into lunge. As we land in lunge, we're going to ground that left heel and open ourselves up and into warrior two. We'll blossom all the way into the full expression of that shape. Think about that front quad. And then drop your right forearm down onto your right thigh and reach straight up for a nice expansive side angle. All right, we're not taking the full challenge of the torso bend. Instead, we're thinking about space in the shape. Then drop your right hand down and just transition back into warrior two. Spin the left heel up. We'll come back into a crescent. And then drop your hands to heart center and we'll step forward. It's a mountain. Breathe into this mountain pose. Reestablish alignment and ease, and then engage the glutes. And with the glute engagement, think about that up and down stability. So upstream, downstream stability. We'll draw the right knee up into a little half karate kid. Slide that right foot back, ground our right heel, and we'll roll open into warrior two. Think about our width and our space. When you're comfortable, left forearm comes down to the thigh, right arm reaches straight up. Really think about your ability to extend and widen your torso here. Not worried about the drop, more focused on the expansiveness. Then we'll drop the left hand, draw up to warrior two, right heel will spin up. We'll be back into our crescent. Drop the hands and step forward, where we can reestablish our mountain. Once again, engaging the glutes, creating that stable place. And then let's drop our hands to our hips, 4 fingers wrapping around the front, thumbs wrapping around the back. And as you feel with the 4 fingers, find that little crease right above the ilium here and see if you can get a little engagement. And then let's take that forward into fold. Dropping into the fold and releasing the hands, crafting the depth of your fold by thinking about that anterior hip crease, kind of where we started class. And then let's plant our hands and we'll walk back into down dog. Get all the way back into our full depth of down dog. And then let's extend our left leg straight back and behind us. We'll step our left foot forward into lunge, plant the right hand and take the left hand up into a nice little twist. Pay attention to what the left thigh wants to do. A lot of times it wants to leak out. Really keep that in line. Left hand comes back down. Left foot steps back into down dog, drive all the way back into the shape. Right foot extends straight back and behind you, then right foot steps forward into lunge. Right foot lands, left hand plants, right hand reaches up into the twist. Craft that rotation. Beautiful, beautiful. And then right hand comes down, right foot steps back into down dog. And now we'll come down to hands and knees, well-deserved child's pose, sinking all the way back into the shape. And again, like a little check-in on that anterior hip crease, right? We're playing with the anterior hip crease in a couple of ways. We have the compression kind of forcing that compression of the anterior hip crease. And then we also have the ability to retract back, to pull that belt line back and get that retraction on the front side so we can get some elongation on the back side here, lumbar expansion. Let's give ourselves just 20 more seconds just to calm down. We got moving a little fast there. All right. Let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop and then extend our legs out in front of us. And so we're going to combine a couple of things here. You know, we started off the practice with some core work, which is pretty atypical. We're going to add a little bit more core work in and then try to use that to build some length into our fold. So let's take our hands and just place them roughly at our side. We want to be able to keep our spine roughly vertical. Now, you can lean back a little bit, right? Roughly vertical is the cue, not perfectly vertical. And then once you do get the hands in a place where you feel relatively comfortable, let's squeeze into the glutes a little bit. And then we're going to see if we can pick that left leg up. And this is a lot of hip flexor requirement. And we're just going to hold that little elevation, hold that hip flexor, and then release the left leg and take yourself forward into fold. And note how your body folds here. It's pretty likely you're going to tilt to the left a little bit. It's pretty likely that openness that doesn't seem like it should necessarily be there is going to manifest. See if you can find your way back to a more neutral fold. And then we'll walk ourselves back up, lock the arms down. That right leg's going to lift. It's a lot of lower abdominal, and it's an awful lot of hip flexor just to get this little baby lift of our leg. It's amazing how much sensation you can create with a leg lift, right? And then we'll release the right leg and we'll take ourselves forward into fold. Now, we should be a little more symmetrical here, but there's also a lot of room to fold. Really try to find all of that. And we'll just give ourselves about 45 more seconds here, a little bit of a longer hold. And so the whispers of this whispering forest are starting to pick up. They're starting to get louder. They're starting to get more frequent. And as the bad omen that it is, it's starting to scare the villagers. They're starting to worry constantly about the whispering forest and what it's bringing them. When you're right, we'll walk ourselves up into staff, and then we're going to transition back to hands and knees tabletop. Likely some pretty good sensation in the posterior chain here. Make sure you bring your spine to neutral. So even though the core might be a little fatigued, try to engage that and get some nice neutral low back. And then let's curl our toes and we'll roll our way back into down dog. And we'll walk forward to fold, front of the mat. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, back into fold. Sweep yourself up and release your hands to heart center, where we are establishing our mountain. So glutes are squeezed. We're feeling that upstream, downstream stability. And then we're going to release our hands behind our back. So just like the first time we were here, the elbows can be bent or the arms can be extended down. We just want to have the shoulders feel comfortable to relatively comfortable. And I should note that if the hand interlace doesn't work, we can go back to that glute grip. And then with the hands behind us, we are going to slide our left foot straight back into lunge. So we end up in a nice little modified crescent, and then we're going to turn into a modified warrior two. And from our modified warrior two, you can kind of see or maybe kind of feel that it's a little bit hard to find the verticality of the spine here. Body wants to cheat towards the shorter side of your shoulder girdle. So see if you can find that neutrality, and then we're going to tilt our way forward. You can kind of think about recreating the forearm to the thigh thing here. We're less worried about how much depth we offer in the torso and more worried about what's going on behind us, trying to keep that level and even. And then we'll draw back up, blossom into warrior two, and then turn your right foot so that it mirrors the left. So both feet are pointed towards the edge of your room. And we'll take the arms up and overhead, and then we're just going to exhale into this wide forward fold. Now, as you settle here, there's a tendency for all the weight to want to push back into the heels and for you to kind of balance on the heels. Think about redistributing the weight between the front and back foot and feel where in the chain this really lands. Likely, because of the way we've put together this class, we're going to feel this in the high glute insertion, high kind of hamstring glute interchange, more than we might normally feel. So think, and especially if we balance our weight and our toes and our heels. And then we'll draw our awareness to our sacrum. We're going to roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Transition from this shape back into a crescent. So both feet are spinning, the torso is spinning, the arms are reaching. And then we'll drop the hands to heart center and return to the front of the mat. Coming back to that front space, our mountain pose, and we're reestablishing our upstream, downstream stability, using the glutes in the mid body to really crank into that stability. And then from here, releasing, if the hands are heart center, right? We want that connection, create that stability, then release your arms behind you. Again, interlace works, fingertips work, hands to the glutes work, anything that allows you to get kind of that little exterior rotation and anterior expansion. Right leg's going to slide straight back, establishing crescent for a beat, grounding and rolling to this modified two. See if I can get my pants out from under my legs. Finding that openness here, thinking about the shoulder positioning, think about your torso being balanced. Then we're taking our torso into this little side angle, right? Same thing as the forearm. We're just working on our shoulder positioning. Then we'll draw up, reestablish two. And then we're going to turn both feet to face the sidewall, arms reach up and overhead. And we'll exhale through forward fold. Once again, as we take this fold, we're balancing the weight distribution between the toes and heels, and we're looking at where in the posterior chain we're receiving this. What is taking the responsibility of supporting, of stabilizing our forward fold? Eventually, we'll drift our awareness to our sacrum, roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae, spinning both feet towards the front of the room, reestablishing our crescent, floating the hands down to the mat. We're going to step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk back into plank. Create that stable base of plank, and then slowly, gently, delicately lower yourself down to your belly. And let's go right into crocodile pose here. So hands underneath the forehead and just allowing your body to be at some ease here, to really stabilize your breath. To relax. We'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And let's slide our hands back underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees. From hands and knees tabletop, let's curl our toes, lift our seat, roll our way back into down dog. Get all the way back into that lift. Press from those fingertips and finger mounds. And then let's walk forward into fold. Just finding our way to the front of the mat. And from the front of the mat, relaxing completely into your forward fold. Think about the feet, balancing your weight, and then think about relaxing your feet. Like you're trying to feel the musculature on the bottom of the feet relax. And as that happens, feel how much more depth you can find in your fold. And then let's shift our awareness to our sacrum. We'll roll or sweep our way up into mountain. And from mountain, hands coming together at heart center, re-engaging the glutes so that we create that upstream, downstream stability. Think your way back into chair. Good, flat, neutral, low back. Think about as much depth as you can create, keeping those knees above the ankles. And then we'll lift ourselves back up into mountain. Slide our left foot straight back into lunge. Ground our left heel. Open our way into warrior two. Good, strong leg engagement on both feet. Draw back into that right hamstring. And then just tilt your way forward towards a triangle. Now that could be on the thigh, it could be on the shin, it could be on the ankle, it can be on the floor. But wherever we land, we're thinking about how the body is responding and where we can create space, right? So every shape we've kind of found our way into tonight, there's been a little room for expansion. And then let's draw back up. We'll rebend that front knee. Spin our left heel up, crescent, and let's drop the hands to heart center and find our way to the front of the mat to reconnect with our mountain. Kind of a big open space in the posterior chain here. We really hit all the pieces. When you get that glute engagement, when you get that stability, let's take this to side two. So right leg slides back, it grounds, we roll to two, we slide back into the left hamstring. We think about that like openness there, and then we head down. Again, this can be the thigh, the ankle, the foot, the floor, but we are in a space where we can breathe and where we can be easy and relaxed. And then we'll draw ourselves up, bend the front knee, spin the right heel up, crescent, and then step forward and reestablish mountain. Nice work. Sweep the arms up and overhead, turn the palms towards the front of the room, big full extension. Exhale through your forward fold, release all the way into that fold. Let your head go, let your neck go, let your body get long. Feel the hamstrings, feel the low back, feel all of that expansiveness. Then let's plant our hands, we'll walk back into down dog. Drive your way into down dog. And then let's come down to hands and knees, tabletop, and we'll sink back into child's pose. Breathing here. And so with everyone so agitated, they call on the village elder. And they go ask of him, what he knows about the Whispering Forest, and if it is true that the whispers bring problems. And he says, the thing I know about the Whispering Forest is when it whispers, problems come to the village. And so they all walk away and they're angry at the forest, and they get together this night and they get a bunch of torches, and they're going to head out into the Whispering Forest and they're going to burn it down. And the village elder kind of wanders out. He hears this commotion in the middle of the town. He wanders out and he says, I wouldn't do that. And they all look at him and they're like, you told us that the forest brings our problems. Why wouldn't we burn it down? And he says, because the solution to your problems resides in the middle. And they all look at him and they say, well, then go into the forest and bring our solution. And he says, well, you may have noticed, but I'm rather elderly. I'm not very mobile. Why don't we have a volunteer? When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we're going to extend our legs out in front of us one more time for staff and just follow the legs into a forward fold. And because everyone's terrified of the Whispering Forest, no one volunteers to go. And they're all kind of getting agitated and grumpy and starting to grumble at one another when this little 12-year-old girl who should be in bed says, I'll do it. And everyone scoffs and everyone's like, no, no, no. But this village elder says, well, we have a volunteer. And then they all start getting mad at the elder. And he says, when someone volunteers for a task this important, they're the right person. And so against all good judgment, this little girl is sent out in the middle of the night into this Whispering Forest, this forest that this entire village is terrified of. Last 20 seconds here. And then we'll walk ourselves up into staff, and then we'll lower ourselves onto our back. And as we land here, we'll just for a moment appreciate what we've done so far. And so the further this little girl gets into the Whispering Forest, the louder these whispers become. What used to be a faint hush is now a roar of. You can never quite make out any words, but the sounds themselves are terrifying. And as she pushes further, as she pushes deeper into the forest, she starts to hear words. She starts to be able to, from these hushed whispers, from these muted sounds, pull a word or two. And the further she gets in, she starts to hear like little fragments of sentences and then entire sentences. And she starts to realize that the sentences she's hearing are her own inner doubts, her inner fears, her inner worries, her inner frustrations. When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees into a bent position if they're not already there. And let's add a little dynamic sway, a little movement through the spine, kind of play with what we've done. And as she continues even further in, she starts to recognize other voices in the distance, whispering in these trees in this forest. And they're the voices that she's heard in her village. And she starts to realize she's hearing the inner thoughts, the inner fears, the inner frustrations of the members of her village. And as she walks further, this cacophony of inner mind voices is almost maddening. And then she sees this stone circle. The next time the knees fall over to the left, let's let them stay there. She sees this circle of stones around this pool of water, this perfectly still pool of water. And she steps inside this circle of stones. And as she crosses the threshold, this wave of voices instantaneously disappears. And she's in this space of perfect silence with this perfect little pool of water. And she feels this immediate ease in her body, in her mind. And she sits down next to this pool of water. And almost like she's forced to, she's compelled into this meditative state. And she starts to experience the duality of everything and nothing. And some time passes with her in this complete awareness. And when she gets up and she walks to the edge of this bubble of silence in the middle of this whispering forest, she's terrified because she knows that when she steps back across this threshold, there's going to be a roar of voices, most loud among them her own. Last 30 seconds here on this first side. And we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And then let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. And she finally builds up the courage and she steps across this threshold. And the voices do pick back up. But her voice is missing. And the entire way back to the village, her voice never shows up. And over the course of the next few weeks, one by one, she leads each individual member of this village through this bubble of awareness in the middle of the whispering forest. And she guides them in. And they too are compelled into this state of meditativeness. When you're ready, let's bring our knees back to neutral. And then we'll let the knees fall over to the second side. And each time she guides someone to the bubble, when they leave, their voice is missing from the forest's whispers. And when the entirety of the village has visited this bubble of consciousness, stillness, and silence, the whispering forest is silent for the first time. Feeling into the breath as you settle into this twist for 60 more seconds. And when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral, kneecaps point towards the ceiling. And as the kneecaps point towards the ceiling and the spine finds that neutrality, ask yourself if there's anything that you could benefit from prior to Shavasana. If there is, let's offer that to ourselves now. And if you're ready for some stillness, let's settle into a shape where we can fully and deeply appreciate Shavasana. And so we'll start to feel our breath in our lungs. Start to visualize the breath filling your lungs and then the breath leaving your lungs. And then start to visualize the exogenous version of your lungs, the plant life on the planet, receiving your exhale breath. And then exhaling so that you can inhale. And so you're visualizing the cycle of you inhaling the vegetation's exhale, and you exhaling so that the vegetation can inhale. And we'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes, to our wrists and our ankles, our elbows and our knees, our shoulders and our hips, our neck and our head. Eventually, we'll transition from the shapes we are in to a seat. In this seated space, finding a spine that's tall, a breath that is fluid, visualizing that exchange of inhale and exhale between you and the plants on the planet. And just asking how life would be different if every breath, every being on the planet was conscious of that exchange. And then we'll inhale our hands together at heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself, especially if you're unhappy with the state of things, and that there is a difficult but simple solution, and it is more consciousness. And see how that changes your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday. Thanks for being here. Appreciate the heck out of you. Have a beautiful week. I'll be back on Sunday to recharge, and we'll do this thing again next Monday. Love you. Mwah.